Welcome to my secret channel Emerald, where I ramble about whatever I feel like in the laziest format possible. You guys thought I was dead. I thought I was dead too, so it's okay. I know what exactly like 3 of you were thinking. Emerald, where's the video where you said you would reflect on New Testament? Well, I recorded it and I didn't like it and I don't want to edit it, so it may never see the light of day. Unless no one cares what I think and just wants me to take the time to upload it anyways, and I'll do. Because, you know, I did also answer your guys' questions, and I feel more bad about that. So maybe it'll be uploaded sometime when you're least expecting it, but who knows, we'll see. But the truth is I've been very busy. I've been very busy. This channel has not been a priority in the slightest. I've mentioned it a few times, but I started this channel because I had a lot of free time on my hands and I wanted to talk about the things that I had no one in real life to talk about them with. Because believe it or not, Toaru and a lot of other things that I like are not very popular, and not all of your friends are gonna like them and want to listen to you talk about them. And so now I don't have a lot of free time on my hands, and I do have friends that I can talk about these things with. So yeah, I haven't really had as much of a reason to make videos on this channel, and so they'll be extremely sparse. But this video I had mentioned in my last video, and I was thinking about it recently, and I was like, you know, maybe I actually really do want to talk about this. So in the laziest format possible, I'm going to be talking about my top 50 characters in the Toaru franchise, and let me give you a fair warning. This list is really bad. You will not like this list because I unabashedly, totally unabashedly do not care if my opinion belongs in a trash can. This list may upset you. It's okay. In fact, probably the very first character that I list is probably gonna upset people. So don't say I didn't warn you, and be ready for me to say 3 magical words that I say very often in my videos, multiple times. Even if you think those characters are not as deep, not as complex, don't develop as much, blah 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 blah, than other characters you put lower, because yes, some of these characters I put way higher than they have any right to be, and then some of these characters that everyone like super loves are gonna be a little bit lower. May not be at the spot you want them to be. And on that note, I have to ask you guys to list your favorite characters for me. I don't know if I want to ask you guys to do your top 50 in the comments, because that would be a lot to read. But if you want to go for it, go ahead, give me your top 50. I'll read it. No one else may read it, but I'll probably read it. Or you can just make a much more respectable top 10, 15, 20, whatever. A few more things to note is that throughout this list, I'm going to avoid any sort of like major spoilers. Now, of course, I gotta mention little things here and there, but for the most part, I'm going to try to not list off a bunch of huge story points that happen. So if you're not caught up all the way, then that's okay. Another thing to note is that where I am in the series, I've read all of New Testament. I have not started Genesis Testament, and I'm not fully caught up on like the newest Railgun arc. So there may be some characters missing that could be on this list. That very well will be on this list once I have read GT. But for now, and maybe I'll make some sort of amendment to this video later down the line. But we'll see. Last thing is, how am I ranking these? Okay, very simple. It's very simple. How much do I like them? That's it. It's nothing. It's no sort of like objective ranking or anything. It's not even close to an objective ranking. It's very far from it, because I think that's kind of boring. I think it's way more fun when people just have like just super wacky lists of like there's just their own personally favorite characters for whatever totally personal reasoning. That's a lot more interesting in my opinion. If I were sitting here just trying to like objectively rank every Toaru character, that'd be pretty boring, and like anyone could do that and their list would at least be a little bit similar to some extent. But that's not going to be the case here, because my list is going to be like no one else's list. And your list would also be like no one else's list. So just because I have certain characters up really high does not mean they're objectively better than characters below them. In fact, there's very many cases where I'm like, yeah, this character is objectively worse, but I just think they're funny, so I put them higher. But you know what? I have rambled long enough. Let's get into this list. First of all, let me give a few honorable mentions. People that did not quite make the list that I do like, and I want to give a little shout out to these characters that I do like, but could not fit them on the list. Takitsubo Riko. The reason she's not on the list is because I really just like her relationship with Hamazura more than I actually care about her as an individual character. So individually, Takitsubo to me is like a little boring, but I do like the way I more so like her in her relationships with Item and Hamazura. I absolutely love her for that. But just like purely personally, Takitsubo, not the most exciting character in the world, but I do like her quite a bit. Next, Kimi, the antagonist from the Jailbreaker arc. I won't get into any specifics because I said no spoilers, but I liked Kimi. I actually liked her motive. I thought her plan was pretty cool, and I thought there was actually an argument to be made for her plan not even actually being an evil plan. I kind of talk about that in my video about the Jailbreaker arc. But yeah, Kimi's cool. Also, her power is really cool, and her design is pretty cool. Next, Kumakawa Seria. Just barely missed the list, mostly because there's just not a ton of stuff about her. Every time she is in a volume, she plays like a very supporting role of the other characters. Even when she's more involved, it still feels like she just plays a purely, sort of like supportive role. But she's always super fun. I loved her in Biohacker. I liked her in New Testament 7. She's a very unique sort of character that I've enjoyed more and more every single time that she's been involved. Gokusai Kaibi. I just like her design. That's really it. I liked her kind of in Biohacker. I like the idea of her character. She has a cool ability. Not really too much deep to say about her. I just like her design. Uiharu. That might be a little surprising. Uiharu's not on the list. A few years ago, I would have put her on this list, but, I had rewatched Railgun kind of recently, and I really just didn't care for Uiharu as much as I thought I did originally. And I still like her. I think she fits in well with the Rail Gang, but there's just so many characters, especially after reading New Testament. There's so many characters in this series I love. By the way, there's like 600 plus characters in this series at this point. So there's so many, and this is my favorite cast in anime. So the Toaru franchise is my favorite cast in anime, manga, light novels, all that stuff. So there's just an absurd amount of competition, and Uiharu just didn't quite make it. Next is Kihara Kagun. I've seen a lot of people put Kihara Kagun really high up on their list, so maybe that's a little upsetting. And I do really love what is there of his character, but there's also not enough there for me to justify putting him on here, and I know it's going to sound a little hypocritical later on. It's okay, I'll call myself out. I love what's there with Kihara Kagun's character. He is an absolutely amazing twist on the Kihara sort of family, and I really love his scenes throughout the Gremlin saga, but not enough to just put him on the list. Next, Toyama Luka from New Testament 17. She's just, I don't have anything deep to say about her. She's just a really fun character. A lot of people don't like New Testament 17. I did like New Testament 17. The trio with Toma, Luca, and Fran was a really fun one to follow. And you know what? I like her little pirate design, and she has a very fun sort of ability. And last is Omi Shuri. Who is Omi Shuri, you might ask? Well, she is the little ninja girl that's like 30 years old or something like that in New Testament 4, and she also shows up in Railgun. And the most upsetting thing is that she just like basically never returned after New Testament 4, which is very sad because I enjoyed her a lot in that volume. I love New Testament 4, one of my favorite volumes in the entire series, and I really, really enjoyed her in that volume as well, and I was very sad that we did not get to see her again. Now, on to the list. I'm sure I forgot some other honorable mentions I could have done, but who cares? There's too many characters in this series to give them all a little shout out. Number 50, this might be, I think, the most upsetting one for people that he's this low, but Sogita Gunha. He is one of the most unanimously loved characters in these series. I don't know anyone that doesn't like him or feels any sort of distaste for him. So why did I put him at number 50? Well, first of all, I love his character. He's always super fun in every single scene that he's in. But keep in mind, he's been in like one scene in Railgun. He's been in one part of Astral Buddy, and he showed up very briefly in New Testament 7. And I loved him in all of those appearances, but I feel like Gunha's character has not even started yet. I feel like there is Gunha content that we've been waiting for to actually sort of flesh out anything about his character. We know he loves guts, and he fights in a fun way, and he's like a gemstone or whatever, and that's really fun and awesome. But I feel like I can't put him higher until we see, you know, more of him. A lot of other characters on this list, they also don't have a ton of screen time, but their character still reached some sort of conclusion, or they filled their role well. That's not really the case with Gunha, because like I said, it feels like his character hasn't started. There's not really much to judge off of his character. So I can't even say he's filled his role yet, because, well, it's like his role hasn't started. It's like he just kind of jumped in at random and then said bye. So that's my reasoning. I'd love to put him higher. I really would. But not today. Not today. Maybe later on in the series. Who knows? Number 49, maybe a weird choice. Kihara Yuitsu, the antagonist from the Kamisato saga. There are so many good antagonists in Index, and especially New Testament. And so you're gonna see a lot of them in this list. And Yuitsu is the first one you're gonna see here. And you know, I've had a really interesting realization about Kihara Yuitsu. So one thing, and this randomly came to my mind one day, but I realized that one interesting part of her character is that, and I'll be very vague here because no spoilers, is that her motive is revenge for a character that readers really, really like, who will be on this list later. I won't say who. If you know, you know. But her whole motive is that she wants to get revenge for a character that readers up to this point probably almost unanimously love, and she is against a character that you're actually intended to not really like at this point in the series. If you know, you know. And that's interesting because she's an antagonist, but in a way, it's like the reader can probably kind of relate to, or kind of like sympathize for Yuitsu, because, well, this dude just did something bad to this character we really like, and this dude kind of sucks at the moment. So that creates this really interesting scenario where the antagonist of this arc is a character that you can kind of sympathize with, and some people may even have pulled for her to an extent, even though she is objectively the bad lady. But you know, it makes it hard not to feel for her a little bit. I like her design a lot. I like her like pretty insane bluff in New Testament 15. That's a really fun moment. There's a lot of fun moments with Yuitsu. It's not like she's not the most, you know, complex original character you've ever seen, right? It's nothing like groundbreaking, but she's a really fun, in my opinion, a very fun antagonist, and she makes that arc even more enjoyable. Number 48, Oriana Thompson. I shouldn't even really have to say much about Oriana. You know, a lot of people like Oriana for two very large reasons. But no, jokes aside, she is actually a character that is, in my opinion, she exemplifies something Index does super well, and that is bring in these characters from like past arcs in a relevant time that would make sense for their character to appear. And that's one of the benefits of Index just having such a large cast, is that, okay, well, when we have an arc where characters go to England, well, there's a lot of characters from England that we can involve that are relevant, that can be relevant in this story because they're from this place. And then it all just kind of logically is pretty consistent. And Oriana kind of fits into that as well, where she comes at like opportune times. And I always just find her really enjoyable. Every arc that she's in, even though she, hasn't really played a big role since the Daihase Festival arc. But I really enjoyed her when she showed up in British Royal Family. And I also enjoyed her in the very brief scene that we had with her in New Testament 8. It's just whenever she shows up, I'm always having a good time. I don't know about you guys. I'm having a good time. Number 47. There was no way I was not going to include this guy on the list. We have Roberto Cozzi, the president of the United States. And I am telling you, Roberto Cozzi is an example of Kamachi's. This guy is like a clone of Donald Trump, but he came first because New Testament 3, the volume he's in, came out, a good number of years before 2016. And I find his character so unbelievably funny. It's like so many uncanny similarities between the two of them, and it made this volume like way more fun to read in after the fact, way after the fact. And nothing is more entertaining than seeing what a Japanese person thinks America is like. New Testament 3, taking place in Hawaii, is such an unbelievably funny part of this series because it's so stereotypically American to just a total cliche that's so cliche that it's not really that it's a little accurate, but it's definitely an exaggeration. I have to say I'm honored by Kamachi's representation of Americans. And there's one really good saying that I love, and it's be the American that the Japanese think you are. But anyways, Roberto Cozzi, apart from just the funny sort of coincidences of his character, he is such a fun character, dude. He is extremely funny. I love his humor. I love just his middle finger he always gives to the media. I love his involvement in the series, as little as it might be. He's not even particularly an important character in the series, but you know what? He's just fun. He's just fun. That's my defense of Roberto Cozzi. He's fun. And I also have to say it, in New Testament 10, Roberto Cozzi is the most fair character, as stated by Toma. Roberto Cozzi is the most fair of all of the world leaders. I think he's our guy. Moving on, number 46, Mina Mathers. I love her design. I love her humor. She bounces off of other characters very well. I particularly love the way she bounces off of Accelerator in New Testament 19, I think. I love the running gag with her and her husband, Mathers, Mr. Mathers, who is Toma always saying, "Oh, where's the love? Where's the love here?" Because she says such awful things to him, but she clearly loves him. She's a good woman, and she's a very reliable character in the series, and I just enjoy all the scenes that she's in. Number 45, we have Style Magnus. Style Magnus plays one of the most interesting roles in the series because of how much he kind of flip-flops. Because the thing is, his stance in the series is totally consistent. What Style cares about above all else is Toma protecting Index the way that he's supposed to. And in many situations that will cause Style Magnus to be on Toma's side and fight alongside him, or in other moments throughout the series, we see him oppose Toma, and we've seen him fight Toma a number of times now at this point. So he plays a very sort of interesting, pivotal role there. I like his relationship with Kanzaki a lot, and he's just, he's an OG character. What else can you say about him? He's the manliest 14-year-old that you're going to find on the streets. Number 44, Yumiya Rocco, the little sniper girl from Railgun T. And if that was all there was to her character, then she probably wouldn't have been on this list, as cute, crazy as she is. But really, when I kind of started to like her particularly was, if you've read Astro Buddy, you get a little bit of a backstory with her character, and you get insight as to why she ended up the way that she did. And it's actually quite sad. It's also kind of petty, but it is quite sad, and it's very, in my opinion, very understandable why a very young girl would have the sort of psychological reaction that Yumiya had, leading her to her sense of, I guess you can call it sort of fear of loneliness, and her sort of plan to prevent that from ever happening in the future. Maybe more so her fear of neglect rather than loneliness, but yeah, I mean, tomato, right? Not the deepest character, but I quite liked her. Number 43, Dion Fortune from the last arc, the last, I guess, like big arc, I should say, of New Testament. She is a classic Kazuma Kamachi character archetype. She has the personality that Kamachi seems to almost give every single girl in this series, and I just happen to love that personality. So very classic Kamachi character. Really love where her character ended up by the end of everything. I liked the way she developed a lot. I loved her relationship with Hamazura, and I like her design a lot. I think her character had a really nice payoff at the end of the Karanzan arc, and I'd love to see more of her. I don't know if we will, but I'd love for that to happen. Number 42, I'm going to say Mr. Na I'd win himself, Kakine Teitoku. Now, to clarify, I started to actually love Kakine's character after the events of New Testament 5 and 6. So if you're a knower, then you know what I'm really talking about here. And this is extremely spoiler heavy, so I really can't say much about him. But quite frankly, one of the craziest character transformations I have ever seen. Such a wild experience that was, and I have liked him a lot more ever since. I liked his sort of rivalry with Accelerator when he was, when he first popped up. And I do kind of love the whole idea of his character, him, caring so much about status. Aeon has a really good video kind of talking about the purpose of Kakine's character. It's very true, very real. And, I'm just going to leave it at that. Number 41. An even better character than everyone I've listed up to this point. That's right, Komoe Tsukuyomi. Yes, the little pink-haired lolly teacher who's probably like getting close to 40 these days. Here's the special little phrase. I say it all the time. Why is Komoe on this list? Especially why is she up all the way at 41? Why is she better than Gunha? Well, there's a very simple answer to that, and it is cute and funny. I told you this video was going to be shameless. Well, Komoe is such a good teacher. She cares so much about her students. She is absolutely adorable. I love her in every scene that she's in, and I wish she were my teacher. Number 40, Mugino Shizuri. So, had I not read a certain dark side item, I don't even think Mugino would be on this list, because I didn't really care for her until I started reading item. I've read both volumes. We've got the third volume coming out, I think in June, something like that of this year. Mugino's character in Item is absolutely phenomenal. I love her character. I won't get into the details, but she is a far more human character in Item than she is in, Index or Railgun. I think the Item light novel does a really good job of recontextualizing Mugino for events to happen later on in the story, and that is why I like her so much more now than I did in the past. Now, honestly, she could be higher on this list. If I had read Item, years ago, I'd probably have her even higher. But for now, I just put her here. There's just so many characters in the series that I like, and that I have liked longer than Mugino. So I guess it was a little bit hard for me to justify putting her so high. But she really is a phenomenal character, particularly in a certain dark side item. She bounces off of the other characters super well, and there is a lot more depth to her than you would get just from like the anime. Number 39, this one is an exception, Anna Sprangle. I have not read GT. The only thing I know about Anna Sprangle is her appearances at the very end of New Testament. So I was going to initially not even put her on the list, but I just know. I saw it in a dream. I'm going to love Anna Sprangle when I read Genesis Testament. I know it. It's a fact. I'm not even going to call it a prediction. It's going to happen. And so I just kind of threw her in a spot that I guess made sense in the moment. So this is just a placeholder. In the future, I suspect she will actually be much higher, but she's a little freak. She's a little freak, and maybe I'm a little into that. Okay, number 38, the greatest dog in fiction. I haven't found a better dog in fiction. I've been looking. I've found nothing. Kihara no Kan. There's also not a stronger dog in fiction. There's not a more petable dog in fiction. This guy is as good as it gets. But to be a little bit more serious, Kihara is, no Kan specifically, he is a very interesting character for a Kihara. Just to be vague, we see a lot of him sort of questioning his role as a Kihara and, you know, sort of considering stepping away from that life and just kind of see where his character goes. Admittedly, I've heard that in Genesis Testament, he does more stuff there, and I haven't read it yet, so maybe he could be up even higher in the future. But even just what's in New Testament, I really love what was there. He has arguably one of the coolest moments in the entire series, one of the most absurd moments in the entire series, and all around, Kihara no Kan is just such a novel sort of character to have in a series, and I love him. I love him. He's my favorite dog in fiction. Okay, now here's one that's going to get a lot of people shaking their heads because I'm pretty sure I am the only person that actually likes this character. I'm talking about Agnes Sanctus. I have not actually met anyone that said they particularly liked Agnes because, oh, I get it. She's, you know, she's a little overzealous, and she gets introduced as a sort of obnoxious, somewhat irrelevant antagonist. And so, you know, kind of like a bad first impression. And for some reason, this series really loves Agnes's legs. So there's like a lot of fan service with Agnes. So why do I like Agnes? I like Agnes because she is one of the few characters that is legitimately devout, that actually does care about her faith to any sort of like authentic extent, which is kind of disappointing that there's not more characters like that in a series where churches and, you know, characters from churches are extremely common and prominent, and the church is a very prominent aspect of this series. It's a little disappointing to me that there's not more characters that seem genuine about their faith than there are. And so I really appreciate that with Agnes's character, we get a sort of insight into a character that, you know, this actually, her religion actually does matter to her. She really does care about it. And another thing is, I love her sort of small role that she plays in, I believe it's New Testament 20, that sort of dilemma. If you've read that volume, that dilemma that's set up with Agnes and the rest of the nuns, I thought was a pretty compelling scene. And I've always thought that Agnes was just a little bit overhated. A lot of people really don't like her, actively dislike her, and I don't really think she deserves it. But I mean, I can understand where they're coming from. I totally get it. But personally, I think there's a little bit more to her character than people give her credit for, and I enjoy when she's I enjoy when she shows up. Number 36, Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the title character of this series. Now, at one point, I may have even had Index like way lower on this list, because admittedly, the anime and then in certain arcs, she is a little bit annoying. She does bite Toma a little bit too much, but you know what? After years of Stockholm Syndrome, I'm just kind of used to it now. I'm just kind of desensitized to her biting and her "I'm hungry" line that she says, you know, constantly. But now I'm at the point where I find her character very endearing. It makes sense why her personality is the way she is. I mean, when you really, you know, step back and think about it, Index is practically like 1.5 years old because her memory was obviously erased on a yearly sort of basis, and that only changed with the very first arc of the series. So her immaturity in the series is pretty understandable when you consider that she only has memories for up to 1.5 years. And Index has a very, very sad backstory, but in spite of it all, she's, you know, pretty upbeat, she's pretty positive, she's very supportive, she's very caring, even though she bites Toma a lot. And I find her to be a very endearing character at this point. And a lot of people will say, oh, Index hasn't developed at all since the beginning of the series. And like, yeah, there's some truth to that. There is definitely some truth to that. But think about how long Index is going to be. Index is planned, supposedly from Kamachi, is planned to be, or actually the editor, I believe Miki, is planned to be over 100 volumes long. We're in like the 50s right now at the current point in Genesis Testament. There is no doubt in my mind that Index is going to, probably close to the very end of the series, is going to see a lot more attention to her own character personally, because right now she does get neglected a lot, and that's unfortunate. I would love to see more material where she's a big focus of the story, but I do think we'll get that one day. I really do. I think that Kamachi is holding back a lot of what he has for Index for as a character for the end, closer to the end of this series. So I would just say be patient, just because, you know, we haven't really gotten a ton with her character up to this point. That's okay. You know, she's endearing. I find her to be a fun, very cute character, and I'm excited to see where her character will go in the long term. Number 35, Thor. Thor was such a well-utilized character throughout the Gremlin saga. There were so many twists and turns with his character. I loved his dynamic with Toma, his interactions with Toma throughout, I think, New Testament 5 and 6. Absolutely loved him there. And it feels like with Thor, it's like surprise after surprise. You never really know what to fully expect of him. His power is so cool. And he just his whole character just sort of throws a wrench in the cog of the machine. I don't know if I used that phrase correctly. I probably didn't, but you know what I mean. Not necessarily a super deep character, but for the impact that he has on the story, it makes things really engaging. And I think he's a character that filled his role in that saga extremely well. And not every character needs to be, you know, just the epitome of character development. You know, if every character just changed like total 180, and, you know, if we're talking about every single character in the series did like a total 180 and just grew like an absurd amount, that would be really jarring. There are characters that need to fulfill a very sort of particular role, and Thor fills his particular role extremely well. All of his scenes, I think, are extremely fun to read. Number 34, Kuriba Ryoko. First of all, I absolutely love her design. If I were ranking characters by their design, she would be pretty high up the list. She's on this list because I enjoyed her a lot as a, I guess, antagonist, if you want to call her an antagonist. But you know, it's not like she has the most unique sort of backstory or motive ever. But it's interesting more so how she handled it and how she went about achieving her motive through this absolutely like radical methodology of creating the Indian poker cards. And at this point in the story, she actually contrasts with Mikoto particularly well, because Kuriba is a character who, for the sake of helping her mother, has no real problems with getting a lot of innocent people involved. And that is particularly different from Mikoto. She contrasts with Mikoto a lot because, of course, with the Sisters arc, Mikoto does not like that. Mikoto does not like to involve people that weren't, you know, that are not inherently a part of this, you know, situation at hand. That was a huge part of the Sisters arc. That was a huge part of her character. And Kuriba is the exact opposite. She has a problem and she doesn't care about involving so many innocent people if it means that she can find a solution. But Mikoto, the exact opposite, wants to be able to achieve everything purely by herself without the help of others, because she doesn't want to hurt innocent people for something that she believes is her fault. So in that regard, it's a very meaningful sort of dichotomy, to use that very fancy word. And you know what? She's just cute as heck, and I like her tan lines. Number 33, Kongo Mitsuko. I have a friend whose favorite character in the series is Kongo, and I have another friend whose favorite character was Kongo. She's a very lovely character. What's so endearing about Kongo, first of all, that is the best word to describe Kongo, is just endearing, because she's really just the most loyal, caring, thoughtful friend ever, who is just kind of like socially awkward and unaware because she's like a spoiled sort of rich girl. but she's actually just genuinely the kindest person ever. She is there. If you're her friend, she's there for you, and she will absolutely throw herself in harm's way if someone tries to hurt you as her friend. I really love everything behind Kongo's character. She really is just this rich girl that doesn't know how to properly communicate, but she really cares about other people. But a lot of people are off-put by her because she doesn't communicate in the best way. She comes off as being, really arrogant when in reality she's not. She just doesn't know how to act. And even with someone like Kuriko, who's basically her rival, and Kuriko genuinely doesn't even like Kongo, but in Kongo's mind, they're both friends. They are both friends, and she cares about Kuriko just as much as she cares about any of her other friends. And she's just such an endearing, wonderful character. How could you not like Kongo? Maybe, my bad. Maybe you don't like Kongo if you, enjoy like kicking puppies or stabbing children or something. I don't know. Maybe if you're into that, I'm sure I won't exclude you guys. I guess you guys probably won't like Kongo very much, but personally, I don't very often kick puppies and stab children. Stop right there. This is Emerald from several months later, and somehow I missed this in recording. I missed this when I went back in editing, both for audio and video, and I have only just now noticed that I totally skipped number 32. And of course, I didn't notice until I had literally already exported the video, and now I gotta go back and add this part in. But I will just go ahead and put it in here. Number 32, I have Kumakawa Maria. I'm just gonna keep this really short. She's just a very fun character, very cute. Love her design, love her in New Testament 4. Love her relationship sort of thing going on with Kihara Kagun. And what I really liked about her, probably the reason she's made it on this list, is because I really do like the conclusion with her character throughout the Gremlin saga. She did not overstay her welcome in any way whatsoever. Had a very nice, heartwarming sort of resolution with another character. And it just left off on a really good note. And while very far from being one of the most sophisticated, complex characters in this series, I just found that I really enjoyed the smaller part that she played throughout the Gremlin saga. Now, I know it might be unfair that I put Kihara Kagun only in the honorable mentions and not anywhere near number 32 of this prestigious list. But maybe Mr. Kagun would have had a chance if he wore a maid outfit or something. That's just something that Maria very clearly has over him. So maybe if he does that next time, then maybe he can be on this list. Who knows? All right, I will now allow Emerald from several months ago to continue. Number 31, number 3-1 period, Kiyama Harumi. Kiyama Harumi is such an impressive antagonist for the very first canon arc of Railgun, the level upper arc. I was thinking about this, Kiyama Harumi is the perfect sort of embodiment of like what to expect. Now that you started watching Railgun, and Academy City is this huge, daunting setting, there's so much to learn about it, and Kiyama Harumi, in the very first arc of Railgun, exemplifies what is up with this city. Is she sort of puts on display a lot of the corruption from higher up people in these like research facilities. She exposes the corruption within the city, and then even more so than that, she showcases what happens to someone when you try to oppose that corruption. So she formed a connection with these children just for these children to be used in this awful experiment that would leave them unconscious, probably for the rest of their lives. And so she has a sort of change of heart as a scientist, and she decides she's going to do whatever she can to save these children. And to do that, she has to essentially throw her life away. She has to completely throw her life away. She has to throw away her work, her reputation, and she's just gonna probably, be in prison for a very, very long time because she dared to oppose these corrupt higher-ups and research facilities within Academy City that harmed children. and she's trying to save them. And the only way she can really achieve that is by sacrificing herself. So it's such a good setup. It's such a good setup for the remainder of Railgun, and really just to learn about Academy City. So Kiyama Harumi is such a fantastic antagonist, even though it's just the first arc of the series and it's pretty short and serves more as sort of an introduction for Railgun. But despite that, it's, in my opinion, pretty impressive. And on top of that, I love her design. I love the baggy eyes, and I love her personality. Loves her backstory. Nothing really wrong. Nothing bad to say about Miss Kiyama Harumi from myself. Number 30. I said number 30, Mitori Kozaku. Okay, maybe a large part of this placement is because of her design. Maybe a large part of her placement is because she's a gothic nurse or whatever. And you know what? In reality, the reason she's here is because she's just my favorite little terrorist girl. She's my favorite little terrorist girl. Actually, I realized that, I just now realized this. It just came to me. It just came to me right now. She's actually very similar to Kiyama Harumi in the sense that if you want to oppose the corruption in Academy City, you have to essentially throw your life away to do that. And actually, you don't even just have to oppose it. What happened with Mitori is she just witnessed corruption happening, and she was thrown in a room in solidarity for a long time. And then she commits acts of terrorism for the purpose of a friend. So aside from that, love her relationship with Dolly. Man, I really love her relationship with Dolly and I guess Shokuho by extension. I love those three. Obviously, I love her design. If I was ranking these characters by design, she would be very, very high up. She's got a really fun, actually now 2 very fun fight scenes. And I just like her personality. She's got a little bit of attitude to her, but she's not such a bad person at heart. Number 29, Aqua of the Back, one of the most chiseled jawline characters that you're ever going to find in fiction. To keep things short, because there's a lot I could say about Aqua, but I love the way his character turned around. First of all, love Old Testament 16, right? Old Testament 16, 17, and 18 is just, Aqua's just outstanding. He's a really wonderful character. Love how he turned around. Loved his backstory. A very unique character as well, especially for Index. You don't see too many characters like Aqua in Index. Very special for the series, in my opinion. And I really love that part of Old Testament as well. And we will leave it at that because, I don't actually want this video to be that long. Let's speed up a little bit. Number 28, Fiamma. Now, I would probably have Fiamma higher if I had actually read World War III. I still have not read the World War III arc. I've only seen the anime. And so I know I'm probably missing a lot about, the reality of Fiamma's character. But what we do have, what I do know about him, he is a very fantastic character. He represents something very interesting, loves his design, and he's a good representation of a certain sort of nuance aspect of Index. Index, I've said this in videos before, but Index is really good at sort of sharing different perspectives in a pretty Steel-man-y kind of way. Index doesn't really, Cosmo Kamachi doesn't just straw man characters and their ideologies or whatever. I mean, look at Aleister Crowley. He could have just straw manned the heck out of Aleister Crowley. And you know what? Aleister Crowley probably deserved to be straw manned, but we'll get to that a little bit later. My point is that Kamachi, I think, has a pretty good understanding of a lot of different theological and philosophical and moral sort of perspectives throughout the series. So even though Fiamma is technically a part of the Roman Catholic Church, if you read New Testament too, his actions are blatantly denounced, and he blatantly says that even though Fiamma is this sort of extremist from the Roman Catholic Church, obviously the church, did not support anything that he did. And everything that he did was against the teachings of the church. So I appreciate that nuance, instead of just saying, oh, you see, look, this is what happens when you attend this church. You turn into Fiamma. But no, Kamachi, very fair in how he writes a lot of these characters with wildly different ideologies. And that's one of my favorite things about Index as a whole. Fiamma, outstanding character, You know, when I actually read World War III, I'm sure I'll love him even more and put him high on this list. Number 27, Saint Germain. I think ever since the New Testament 12 video, I think I've mentioned Saint Germain in almost all of my Toaru videos preceding that. And it's very strange to say because Saint Germain is hardly even a character. I won't get, you know, if you haven't read New Testament, I won't get too deep into the specifics. But with Saint Germain, I will just say, I've mentioned in so many of my videos, you'll see in my videos, but my take on him / whatever, I don't know, they, my stance on they, them, or whatever, is that Saint Germain represents like NPC theory, the idea of these people who, they're just NPCs like in a video game. They don't actually have any sort of foundation. They don't have any actual genuine beliefs or goals or anything. All they're doing is really role-playing as if they are trying to accomplish something or achieve something greater. But in reality, they believe in nothing, and they have an identity crisis when they realize this, when they discover for themselves that they don't actually stand on any sort of solid foundation, that everything they say, they believe, or think just changes as the wind blows. Their worldview isn't built on anything consistent, and they cope with this by role-playing in this sort of world as if they're trying to accomplish something greater that in reality doesn't actually have any meaning to them. And you know what? Who even knows if Kameshi had any of this in mind? This is my headcanon, and I'm sticking with it, and I love Saint Germain because he is unintentionally an extremely fascinating character. Number 26, that's right, we're almost halfway through this list, and I've been recording for way too long. We're going to speed things up a little bit here, and I keep saying that. Ayu Mitsuari. What I love about Ayu is she gatekeeps her own character, because if you want to get the full story of Ayu, you have to read New Testament 11, you have to read all of Astral Buddy, and then you have to read Biohacker, and Biohacker is like an insanely long, quote-unquote, short story arc. Ayu exemplifies the reality of the Toaru franchise, that the more you put into this series, the more you will get out of it. If you just watch the anime, then okay, you'll get like a certain level of enjoyment out of it. If you start reading the light novels, you'll get even more. If you start reading all the spin-offs, you'll get even more. And then it just morphs into a spiral where you're just putting a ridiculous number of hours into this one series so that you can get the most out of it that you possibly can. And Ayu perfectly embodies that, because you have to go all over the place to actually get the full story of her character. And the full story of her character is fantastic, in my opinion. I loved her in New Testament 11, but if you just read New Testament 11, then it doesn't really feel like there's too much to her character. But then you read Biohacker, and it totally recontextualizes everything about her character and the situation in New Testament 11, and I think it's absolutely worth putting in the extra effort. And first of all, let's get this out of the way. She's cute and funny, but I really love how much they play, especially, I don't want to spoil Biohacker. It's not a spoiler to say, in Biohacker. They really sort of play up the spoiled rich girl aspect of her. But really, what's so compelling about Ayu's character is she embodies the idea that in life, some people are just going to get screwed over, and there's no real way around it. It's not her fault that things ended up the way that they did, but that's just how it came to be. And she becomes very bitter about it, even though precisely because it was completely out of her control. She's bitter towards everyone that had any part in the matter. She pretty much handled her circumstances in probably the worst way possible, but at the same time, it's hard as a sympathetic reader to really blame her, especially when you have the full context of her character. And that's also another thing to point out, is I mentioned the fact that they play into the spoiled rich girl aspect of her character. I mean, that she is, but what you should note here is that, yes, she's this spoiled rich girl, goes to this wonderful school, doesn't have any problems affording anything. It's, really living a pretty comfy life. But it doesn't bring her happiness. In fact, she's one of the most bitter characters, one of the most bitter, spiteful, hateful, envious characters in this entire series at a certain point in the series. And so it tells us that really these things, these sort of material things, don't really matter, because if we can find a reason to push the blame of something that happened to us onto another person, then naturally many people will. In real life, it's actually a pretty common phenomenon that people in real life will have things together. They'll have everything in order. They will be living a good life, just kind of objectively so. And then someone will convince them why they should be unhappy. Someone will almost like gaslight them into believing that something that you may have experienced is way worse than you actually thought it was. Ignore the fact that you're actually living a pretty good life right now, and consider the fact that your life could be like way better if this person didn't do this to you. And then people, and this is especially true for women, I've heard so many stories about this in regards to women, that they'll be convinced by other women that they should be upset about something that has happened to them or some sort of circumstance in their life. And so a switch is flipped in their minds and their psychology, and then they start living their lives consumed by their bitterness towards another person who's responsible for screwing the quote unquote screwing them over. And maybe I'm getting a little bit too off track here, but in my opinion, that's kind of what IU exemplifies. She's this very talented girl that has a lot of things going for her, but she discovers that, things could have been actually even way better if it weren't for this person, this other character in this series, and I won't spoil it. And then so she's completely consumed by envy and bitterness. And once you have the full context of her character, it's very tragic, and it's hard not to pull for IU. It's hard not to feel bad for her. And you know what? I just want more content with IU. I want to read more IU material. I don't know if we'll ever get it. My goodness, I talked way too long about IU. Number 25, Hamazura. I love Hamazura because of the three protagonists. He is the one who is most focused on the most personal thing. So whereas with Toma, he's trying to accomplish something huge. I mean, he's involved in these just worldwide conflicts, universal conflicts. So it's, Toma's operating on a very grandiose scale. Accelerator is very focused on reforming Academy City, which is a very monumentous task. Hamazura, on the other hand, is almost purely focused on protecting the people that he cares about around him, which is Idom and his girlfriend Takitsubo. And Hamazura is one of the realest characters. What I love most about Hamazura is just how much he really changed his life around from just this useless thug to trying to become a respectable person living a good life. Hamazura is a type of character that, if you may very well know someone who has changed in the way Hamazura has in your own personal life. And those are the stories that are always so nice to hear. A story of someone who was, living this, borderline meaningless life, just committing, petty criminal acts or whatever, and then really turns his life around and tries to make something of himself. And I think that's really cool. That's what I love about Hamazura's character so much. Number 24, Junko Hokaze, the boar. The boar herself, Junko Hokaze. This is peak cute and funny. Okay, well, maybe not peak, because we're about to get to a lot of those. So this may seem pretty high for a character that is pretty much irrelevant in anything that's not Astro Buddy. And I just have to note that Junko has become a very notable inside joke with two of my friends. And so, I don't know, I just love her character now even more because of that. She's extremely charming. She's very cute. Her personality is wonderful. She needs to be protected at all costs, even though she doesn't really need to be protected at all, actually, because she can protect herself very competently. But you know what? She's a very pure soul, and I do not want anything to taint this wonderful young lady. You know, there's a lot of sick freaks in this world. A lot of sick freaks like the character I have at my number 1 spot, who would endanger the boar, Junko Hokaze. And I don't think we should let that slide. But on a real note, Junko, she's just, she really is just such a fun character. Wonderful personality. There's nothing really deep to say about her character. I love her in Astral Buddy. There's not much deep to say about her, even in Astral Buddy. But she's just enjoyable. That's all there is to it. What? Do you think I need some deep philosophical reason for why Junko is above all these other characters? Well, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. So let's just move on. Number 23, Carissa. Carissa is, not even really all that important of a character, but oh my goodness, I loved her role in the British royal family arc so much. So I love her so much because of just like how insanely driven she was to save her country. She notices that the world is far surpassing the capabilities of what England, the United Kingdom, can handle. So Carissa decides if the people in charge in England right now are not going to do anything about this, if they're not going to protect England, then I'm going to take charge through a coup d'etat, and we're going to turn England into something that can stand on the level of Academy City or whatever other major forces there are in the world out there. And I love that so much about her. That is such a cool thing for a villain or an antagonist to do. It's a certified I don't know, Julius Caesar moment. I don't know Roman Empire history. I'm sorry to the Roman Empire nerds out there. I don't know much about it, but that sounds right in my head. She's a Julius Caesar of a certain magical index, and so we're just going to go with that. Number 22, the man, myth, legend himself, Aleister Crowley, maybe a little low. And the reason I would even say it's low, even though it's my list, is because I think if you were telling me to rank index characters objectively by how good I thought their characters would, Aleister Crowley, in my opinion, would either be number 1 or number 2. It would be between him and Accelerator. Aleister Crowley is genuinely one of the most compelling characters you will ever read in a work of fiction. He is a phenomenal character that develops in a very profound way that you're not gonna find in many other stories. So why is he a number 22? He's a number 22 because I didn't really even like Aleister until New Testament 21, probably. New Testament 21. I didn't even really like him. I actually kind of disliked him until then. But his character arc really did just make me kind of 180 on his character. And it's so impressive. There's a lot of meaning to be found in the growth that he experiences. And I could sit here and talk about Aleister Crowley for a very long time, and I did in my New Testament rambling videos, and you're just going to have to go watch those if you want to hear me ramble about him forever. To just make a few more specific comments about Aleister, the story between Aleister and Lilith is extremely touching. His interaction with Ursula is one of my favorite moments in the entirety of the series. Very profound scene. And I guess to kind of summarize things, he is a character that, despite how long it took, was able to overcome his extremely sort of cynical nature and kind of atone for everything he had done in his life up to that point. So I really can't praise Aleister Crowley's character enough. The reason that he is this low, which I mean, I still think 22 is pretty high, but the reason he is this low is because there is still a part of his personality that it kind of just irritates me, and so I just didn't want to put him any higher. Number 21, Lola Stewart. I talked about Lola Stewart for an absolutely absurd amount of time in my second to last New Testament rambling video I did. And so, yeah, go there if you want to listen to me talk about her all day. But Lola Stewart symbolically is extremely impressive. I'm not going to get into the specifics because that's like super spoilery. But also, she's just such a beyond entertaining character in this series. So many cool twists with her character, and I loved every scene that she was in. She made the last major arc of New Testament a real roller coaster. And then just on top of that, I already mentioned, symbolically, there is a lot to dig into her character. I talk about it in my past videos, so if you really care about my thoughts on that, for whatever reasoning, then you could go watch that. Number 20, someone's going to stab me for this choice. Lesser. Lesser. Okay, let's get it out of the way. You knew it was coming. Cute and funny. There is not one single scene that Lesser is in that is not giving me a goofy smile, putting a goofy little, silly, wacky little smile on my face because she is so funny. She's very horny. And you know what? Maybe that's why she's so funny. You know, her character is borderline useless. I don't know if Lesser actually does anything impressive in this series at all. She, I think, really is just there to be funny. And she keeps getting like cameos in some of these arcs. There was no reason she needed to be in the Karanzan arc, but for some reason Kamaji put her there like twice. Anyways, there's literally no reason. She doesn't actually contribute hardly anything, and I don't care because what she contributes to is my joy. You know, maybe Aleister Crowley is like, you know, super complex, deep philosophical character, whatever. Okay, that's cool and all, but Lesser has a cute design. She has cool, unique hair. She has a little staff and a little tail, and I like that. And she's really funny, and she makes me smile, and I like her. I like her British nationalism. Even though I'm American, I respect the grind. I respect the grind of Lesser. I don't care if she does like literally nothing productive whatsoever. She's number 20 on this list. She is Emerald's 20th favorite Toaru character. So cope, cry about it. Moving on, number 19, we've got another cute and funny character. We got Kinohara Sai, but you know what? Kinohara has a little bit more depth to her than Lesser. Give me that. She has a nice backstory. I love her in Item, a certain dark side item as well. She gels with the group very, very well. But you know what I really like about her? I like that she says super in almost every other sentence, because when I'm reading, I know who's talking. And so that's it. I like when she says super. All right. That's why she's my 19th favorite character. But no, also there's another reason I like her. I like her because she likes weird experimental B movies. That's pretty wacky. That's pretty funny. Okay, but to be a little bit more serious, conceptually, she's a very interesting character because, of course, she was a part of the Dark May project. If you've seen the anime, that's not a spoiler. If you've seen the anime, you should know what that is. So she has sort of like the brain chemistry or whatever of Accelerator, which is why her power ended up the way that it is, and partially why her personality ended up the way that it is. I will add another thing that really helps is just the fact that everyone in Item has such good chemistry. They all bounce off of each other so well, and that makes all of them really enjoyable. Kinohara she's just a charming little character. Moving on to the next one, number 18. This may be the most upsetting to people because I have Kamijo Toma at number 18, which seems low. Keep in mind, yes, I have him at 18. Maybe he should be higher. Okay, Toaru is my favorite cast in all of anime, and I had to put 50 characters together in this series where there's like 600 plus characters. All right, but I love Toma. Toma's a wonderful catalyst in this series. I love how he grows as a character throughout New Testament. There are a lot of wonderful lessons to be learned from Toma's character throughout this series. And there's just so many things about him that I do really love. I love the speeches that he gives people right before he punches them. I love his sheer determination. You know, if Toma were a different character, Toaru just wouldn't be the same. It really just wouldn't be the same. He has been the foundation of just this series I love oh so much, my favorite series I've probably ever consumed. So I have all the respect in the world for our boy who has been screwed over in so many different ways in life, yet wouldn't trade his bad luck for the world. Moving on to number 17, Kanzaki Kaori. Kanzaki is I've always loved Kanzaki. First of all, even just aside from, her character itself, her design is so cool. I think in one of my videos I said she has like my favorite design in all of anime. I don't know if I'd still say that, but I do really love her design. But what's so interesting about Kanzaki's character is how self-deprecating she really is, because she's this character. It's very talented, very smart, very powerful, and yet she always feels as if she is a failure, that she's doing everything wrong. She has a very hard time forgiving herself for the things that she does wrong. And one interesting thing to note is sort of, getting to some real life theology here, is a lot of the greatest saints in history were people that believed themselves to be the worst sinners, and Kanzaki, quite literally a saint in the series, perfectly embodies that idea that the greatest saints believe they are the worst sinners. And in just about every part of the series that Kanzaki's been relevant, she has always blamed herself for things that have gone wrong. She has blamed herself in a way for, what happened with Index in the very first arc. She blamed herself for supposedly what she believed to be holding back the Amakasa Church, who was very loyal to her, and she just kind of turned away from them for kind of selfish reasoning, and then kind of atoning for that. And there's also a moment in New Testament 20, I believe, where she sort of reflects on her actions up to that point and that arc. And so there's just been this common theme that I really, really like of her sort of like remorseful nature, her self-deprecating nature. And I think it's something that's pretty relatable, pretty applicable in real life. When you have a standard set for yourself and you feel as if you constantly don't meet that standard, it feels terrible and you feel like the worst person in the world. But in reality, what it really shows is Kanzaki is like a very principled character that really does care about doing the right thing. And so all the respect in the world for Kanzaki. She really is a wonderful character, and one that a lot of people I feel like just don't talk about much anymore, but I thoroughly enjoy her. Number 16, a not so deep character, Fran. I like Fran better. Fran Karasuma. I take it back. No, this is the deepest character on this list so far. There's a lot of deep and meaningful things that I like about her, like her hoodie that she wears over her bikini, the fact that she really likes Bunny Gray, right? I think that's pretty deep. No, let me be honest with you guys. I just you know why I like her. I'm not even gonna say it this time. You've heard it enough times in this video. You know why I like her. Actually, it's hard to explain why I like her without using those words. Okay, well, aside from the fact that she is the cutest and the funniest, I do really like the sort of very, very cliche, very cheesy story of unrequited love. I don't know how you say the word unrequited. I've always said unrequited love with Kamisato. I like the sort of twist with her character in the story, but let's be real, dude. I do. It really is just the fact that she's so cute. It really is just the fact that she's so cute and just has this little like dopey deadpan personality. That's really all I gotta say. Let's just move on. Number 15, Salome, Little Miss Mass Murderer Salome. Now, yes, very, very. What's the synonym for cute? Very adorable and very humorous. That is true, but really, psychologically, Salome is a very, very interesting character. I won't get too deep into it because of spoilers and whatnot, but the way that she contrasts different characters in New Testament 15, like the way she contrasts Mikoto and Kamisato and the Kamisato faction, is very psychologically interesting. So she's this mass murderer, of course. I mean, that's not a spoiler. The arc is literally named Mass Murder mass murderer Salome arc, something like that. But what's so fascinating about it is that the volume it constantly makes this point that what makes someone psychotic is not that they it's not that they don't operate by any rules at all. It's that they operate based off of an extremely specific set of rules and they never break them ever. And what's so funny about that throughout the volume is that perfectly embodies Salome, but she will ironically make the comment that a few other characters are actually more psychotic than her, which really kind of makes you think twice about, the mental states of these other characters at the time. And another thing I really like is her relationship with Kamisato as his not blood-related sister. She cares about Kamisato so much that she is totally willing to oppose Kamisato when he's going in a direction that she knows is not right. So she holds her brother to like a very high standard, and she wants to, as his sister, keep him in that line. And because she's a psychotic mass murderer, she's willing to go to absolutely exaggerated lengths to ensure that that's the case. So she makes for such an insanely fun and interesting, unique character throughout the series. I don't feel like there's really many other characters quite like Salome. Like, okay, yes, she does have that sort of tsundere personality that almost every girl in the entire series has, but there's a lot more to her that is just not quite like any other character in the series. I really enjoyed her. I find it, everyone has a character in Toaru where they get upset that they're not more prominent in the series, and a lot of the time I think of it as, well, they're characters in this world, so they're relevant when it makes sense for them to be relevant, or if their story arc concludes, there's really no reason for them to come back. But Salome is a character I desperately wish would come back. I feel like we did not get enough Salome content, and I would love for that to change one day. Number 14. Oh, dude, I was going to make the outdated Burger King foot lettuce joke at number 15, and I didn't. Number 14, Saten Ruiko. Who doesn't love Saten? Probably, I guess, not necessarily the most beloved, but the least controversial character in the main group of Railgun. She is the very definition of fun. A friend of mine had made the comment that Saten makes exposition way more fun than it normally ever would be. And I think that's totally true. Her super upbeat personality and just, I guess, the antics that she gets up to kind of serve a very particular purpose in Railgun, and it's just so fun. She bounces off of every other character so well, and she's a character that I feel like I could just listen to her just talk like all day. Maybe that sounds a little weird, but she just is very engaging in a conversation. And you know what? She's also just a good heckin' friend, dude. She's just a good friend. Even when she's faced with a challenge that she has no right to be able to overcome, she'll do it. She'll do it if she has to. She'll do it if she has to. One scene I really love in the very beginning of Railgun and the level upper arc is when she sees some dude getting harassed by a bunch of thugs. She knows she literally can't do anything because she doesn't have an ability, but she feels like she would feel like trash if she just walked away. And so even though she has literally no chance against these guys, she steps in and tries to help this dude out. And in that way, she's kind of like Toma, obviously less powerful because Toma has a magic breaker, but she kind of bears a resemblance to Toma. So thank you, Saten. Very cool, very fun character. All the love in the world, Saten. Number 13, Itsuwa. One strange thing about Itsuwa is that she just doesn't have a last name. Or maybe Itsuwa is her last name and we don't know her first name. I don't know. But that's kind of weird for a character that has been in the series for so long. Itsuwa is such an unbelievably endearing character. She just, let's be real here. Itsuwa probably deserves Toma more than just about anyone else in this series. She would actually unironically just make probably the best wife. If you get all of the candidates that Toma could potentially marry, Itsuwa is probably actually the most deserving. She probably would make the best wife out of all of them. She's very pretty. She's very loyal. She's extremely loyal. She can cook. I assume she can clean. I'd be surprised if she didn't. And she brings you warm towels just out of the random. I don't even know where she gets them from, but she's got them on standby. She's very humble and gentle. Unless you're the bad guy, then she won't be very gentle. And I just wish we had more Itsuwa. Itsuwa, not very prominent in New Testament, unfortunately. Very unfortunately. I guess to point out some, scenes that I really like. First of all, I really love her in the Aqua of the back arc. I think she's wonderful there. She showcases just how much of a ride or die that she really is. She's also just pretty knowledgeable and pretty intelligent character. And I just enjoy literally every scene that she's in. She is the sweetest character in the series, and if anyone harmed her, I would kill everyone in the room and then myself, and I just happen to be the only person in this room. Number 12, Ursula Aquinas. Now this one is very interesting because, I made a Toaru character tier list video on my Pros CD channel, my music channel, years ago. I did this thing on my channel called Toaru Month. Basically all it was is that I made a handful of Toaru videos all to upload within the span of a month. And it was a few covers. I tried to make an original Index opening song. And this was when I wasn't even particularly good at music yet. And I made a tier list video, and I didn't think anyone would watch that video. And that video got I think it has 18,000 views, which is the most viewed video I've ever had on any channel. Unfortunately so, because that video is absolute garbage. That video is really, really bad. I hate that video. I hadn't even read New Testament. I was an anime only at the time, and I made this tier list, and it was just objectively not good. But the reason I bring that up is because I think I ranked Ursula pretty low on that list because I thought she was really boring. I probably put her C or D tier or something. I thought she was a really boring character. I really thought that there was nothing interesting about her. And now she's number 12 on this list, which is pretty dang high. If you want the full story, you can watch my video where I talk about New Testament 20, but I'll talk about it here. Ursula, I totally 180'd on this character because like I said, I thought she was very boring. And then as I read New Testament 20, my opinion of Ursula completely 180'd. She had a wonderful story in New Testament 20 that just totally changed my opinion of her. And she was a character that I thought I didn't really think there was much meaning to her character before, but then I kind of recognized what her purpose was in the series after that story. I won't get into the details, but basically what Ursula represents is Ursula Aquinas represents the best possible representation of Christianity that a human being could ever hope to be. She embodies everything that is good about Christianity. She is all loving and caring and thoughtful and gentle and forgiving, and she just exudes righteousness. So as a result, when people see Ursula, they are witnessing the purest effects of Christianity on someone's life, on the life of a devout believer and follower. So she is the greatest representative of Christianity because she exudes everything that is good about it and softens the hearts of people who oppose the faith. And I don't want to get into spoilers, but this makes for such one extremely phenomenal scene in New Testament 21 that you should go read for yourself. You should go read it for yourself. And I know some of you guys may be rolling your eyes, but I'm a Christian myself, and I love Ursula so much because of what her character represents. I find it to be very personally meaningful, and I'm also very impressed by Kazuma Kamachi's ability to write a character like this. I'd be, very surprised if Kamachi were actually a Christian. I highly doubt he is. But the fact that he's able to write a character like this, in my opinion, speaks volumes of his capability as a writer. I also want to note that I love the conflict that she experiences in New Testament 20 because it exemplifies, I'm using that word a lot in this video, it exemplifies arguably the most important aspect of Christianity, and that's the concept of sinning and repentance, and forgiving others for their sins as well. So as any human in this fallen world would have, she makes a mistake and she feels horrible for what she did, repents, and she's forgiven by others around her, as she has always been forgiving towards other people. She's been very forgiving towards other people. Look at her relationship with Agnes. Agnes, straight up tried to kill her, and she's forgiven Agnes, which is not something anyone would ever be expected to do. And another thing to note is that she does not treat people differently. She cares above all else. Above all else, she cares about leading people down the path of righteousness. She clearly feels no malice towards anyone for any sort of differing opinions. My goodness, she started working at this prison. So I guess it was a prison, something like that. She started working at this sort of prison because she just wanted to help people and lead them down this path of righteousness. So she harbors no ill will towards anyone, despite what they may believe or despite what they may say or do to her. She keeps intact this pure, forgiving heart towards anyone, no matter who they are, no matter how awful they may be, which for any Christian or anyone in general is an extremely difficult thing to do, is to not feel hatred for people that you deem to be your enemies. And clearly it pays off because of a certain scene with another character that is on this list. She is able to in some way sway the heart of a horribly cynical person that has felt nothing but hatred and disgust for her religion. So I know a lot of people aren't really going to care about Ursula. They're not really going to care about these scenes that much. But for me, it was a big deal. That's why she's very high up on this list, and honestly, she could probably be even higher than this. But just to point out one more thing is I love the fact that her name is Ursula Aquinas. And Aquinas, if you don't know, Aquinas, she's named after St. Thomas Aquinas, who was probably the greatest Christian philosopher and theologian that has ever existed. There's a lot of them, but St. Thomas Aquinas is one of the most renowned, and he developed a lot of the greatest arguments, the greatest logical arguments for the existence of God that still exist today and are still used today. If you've ever heard, phrases like the unmoved mover, the uncaused causer, that comes from St. Thomas Aquinas. So it is so funny, it is so interesting that Ursula is named after St. Thomas Aquinas, who would change people's minds through these very sophisticated logical argumentations, whereas Ursula is the exact opposite, and she sways people's hearts and minds through embodying the principles of Christianity at its strongest. So basically you have Ursula, who embodies the greatest sort of emotional and metaphysical aspects of Christianity, and she's named after St. Thomas Aquinas, who embodied the most logical and reasonable elements of Christianity. So yeah, I absolutely love the naming scheme here, and thank you for letting me nerd out about that for a little while. I know some of you guys probably skipping ahead, rolling your eyes. I get it, but I wanted to talk about it. It's my video, it's my list. Then we have a not so Christian duo. I said duo, number 11. I was not going to separate these two, Nephthys and Nyang Nyang. There was no way I was going to split them up into two different spots because they are a combo. They are a package deal. So really, this is 51 characters, but you know what? They're a package deal. I'm not separating them, and I'm really just saying I didn't know how to pick who my favorite was. So Nephthys and Nyang Nyang are the funniest characters in this entire series. They steal every single scene that they are in, and every single arc, I want them to be so involved in this series. It's not even funny. They're so enjoyable. They're like these arbiters of chaos. They're these dubious little goons. Their dialogue is totally out of this world. every line they say is fine. I really do think they're the funniest characters in the series. Besides maybe the Mitsuka clones. The Mitsuka clones are pretty funny. But Nephthys and Yang Yang are absolutely hilarious together. They're basically this comedy duo that is just super strong. Obviously, because of who they are extremely fun to watch/read their fights. They have one of, if not my favorite fight in Index in New Testament 17, I believe. But even just apart from, the funny antics, they are legitimately interesting characters with some really, really great moments. One of my favorites being Nephthys in New Testament 14. I believe it's the very end, towards the very end of New Testament 14. Wonderful scene if you've read that. They fulfill a very interesting role in this series as these extremely powerful beings. They can obviously influence just about any sort of situation that they want. Maybe in GT they won't be able to, because I'm sure GT characters are just absolutely cracked. But they have so much power and influence that they will hardly use, because all they really care about is observing creation, because they seem to have like a fascination and also a little bit of a twisted love for humanity. They're pretty chaotic, sort of radical characters, but at the same time, they're also fairly reliable and relatively good-hearted, I would probably say. I love that we have characters like this in the series, and I could just read their scenes all day. I really could. Number 10, a character even stronger than them, Frenda Savaloon. Frenda is such a bizarre character that you couldn't really get anywhere else, because if you just watch Index, there's literally like nothing to Frenda's character. You have to get all of the context of her character from different parts of the series, like Railgun and a certain dark side item. And it's so interesting how much more we learn about Frenda as time goes by. Reading her scenes in a certain dark side item just like totally kind of recontextualizes what we see of her in Index. And then there's New Testament 12, where we kind of learn what kind of person she is outside of the dark side. And that's really one of the most interesting aspects about Frenda, is that Frenda kind of showcases the consequences of just getting involved with the dark side. Outside of the dark side, she lives a very relatively normal life where she makes a ton of friends, and she's this very social girl who forms a lot of different connections with people, and she just seems like this, fairly lovely person. But then, the consequences of being involved with the dark side reaches farther than just herself. So just in the context of the Toaru franchise, Frenda is such a particularly interesting character. And she's just a blast. I'm sure a lot of people think she's annoying. I don't think she's annoying. I think she's very cute and funny. Haha, this bit's getting old. But really she is. She's a very adorable character. Absolutely love her in Railgun T. Probably the most fun Frenda moments we get with her and Satan. What a duo to be messed with. She of course has some pretty fun fight scenes with Yumiya, and then with Mikoto and Railgun S. Maybe I put her like way too high on this list, but I don't know. I've always liked her. I've always found her endearing. Her character has always been something, I guess, of an anomaly to me, and I like her. She's nice. Number 9. I have to admit, I don't even really have a great explanation for this, but Lavinia Birdway. Lavinia Birdway is probably the perfect example of the archetype of girl that Kazuma Kamachi writes so often in this series. She checks every single box that Kazuma Kamachi likes to check in all of his young female characters. The slightly pompous, kinda tsundere, bold, aggressive little girl. And what can I say? I find it fun 100 out of 100 times. On a more real note, I really love the role that she plays throughout the Gremlin saga. Unfortunately, she's kind of irrelevant after the Gremlin saga, but She's this really fun guiding figure throughout a lot of the early New Testament volumes. I particularly really love her exchanges with Toma, especially New Testament 5 and 6, I would say. I don't want to spoil, but I really do love her encounters with Toma in those volumes and that arc. She has such a strong presence in a lot of those early New Testament volumes, and maybe I'm just a little bit nostalgic for that time period, even though that was only like, what, almost 3 years? As I was making this list, I put her so high up, and I was wondering, like, I don't really have all that many deep things to say about her character compared to some characters I have lower, like Ursula, right? But I just like her a lot. I don't know why. Maybe just for the reasoning that I stated earlier. Like I said, Toaru's probably my favorite franchise ever, and I love the way Kamachi writes his characters in this series so much. And Lavinia is such a perfect representation of the type of girl, the type of character that Kamachi loves to write in this series. She, like I said, she checks every box. So I guess logically it kind of makes sense that if she perfectly embodies that idea, why I like her so much, because I love the way Kamachi writes this series and these characters. But yeah, moving on. Number 8, man, we're getting close to number 1. I wonder who it could be. Number 8, Othinus. Othinus herself. I really shouldn't even have to say anything to justify this. Othinus, responsible for my favorite arc in the series, probably responsible for just my favorite arc in anime / manga / light novels. Japanese media, I guess I could say. Probably also my favorite antagonist, I guess, in anime. Her story is so unbelievably effective. It's so special in the series. There is so much meaning that can be extracted from her story and her arc. There's been so many great videos made about it. If you've read her arc, you understand what I'm talking about. The themes that her character represent really do hit home with myself and hit home with a lot of other people. I'm not even going to get into any specifics, because if you haven't read the series, I'm not gonna be the one to spoil you. You should really, if you have the time, just go read it for yourself. Read up to that arc. Obviously, don't just skip everything before her arc. The build-up is very necessary. But yeah, just absolutely outstanding character. I'm not gonna say anything else about her. Number 7, Misaka Mikoto. If it were not for Misaka Mikoto, I would not have even watched Toaru, probably. I got into the series because I had seen pictures of the promotional art for Railgun Season 1. I have a poster of it right next to me where I'm sitting, and I had seen clips of Mikoto being all tsundere, and I was like, hey, dude, I love tsunderes. I gotta watch this series. So if you have enjoyed any of the ramblings I've made for whatever reasoning on this series, you have to thank Misaka Mikoto for it, because she's the reason I got into the series. Of course, unfortunately, because she is by far the most popular character in this series, a lot of people don't like her because, she doesn't develop as much as blah, 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 blah. I don't really care. I really don't. I have always enjoyed her character throughout the entirety of this series. I love her in Railgun. I love her in Index. I think she is deserving of her popularity. She's popular for a reason. You can give your nerdy little arguments for why other characters deserve to be more popular, because they have better development or they're more complex or whatever. But really think about the fact that most people are normies, man. Most people are normies who just enjoy shows for pretty instinctive, surface level reasoning. And Mikoto is just a very appealing character to so many people, including myself, for fairly simple reasoning. That's not to say there's nothing to her character. There's a lot to her character that people don't really consider, or, they just kind of like to ignore or downplay. But she's responsible for a lot of the success that this franchise has seen. And who knows if this whole series would even be continuing if she weren't the character that she is. Aside from all that counter signaling I just did against people that don't like her very much, what I really love about Mikoto is she's got so much spunk. I love her dynamic with Toma and obviously all of the Railgun girls. Obviously, I love the Sisters arc. I think the Sisters arc is one of the foundational arcs of Index as a whole. I love a lot of the internal conflict that Mitsuka experiences throughout that arc. I like what her character goes through in a lot of Index and a lot of New Testament. I definitely like for her to be expanded upon in some ways in the future, and I definitely think she will. I think that's something a lot of people don't consider. This series is like halfway over. Mikoto is a very involved character. No doubt there's going to be a lot of content, so there's going to be a lot of material to cover with her as the series continues, and I'm excited to see it. On top of that, she has so many fun fights. She uses her power in such interesting and unique ways, because electricity sounds kind of, generic. It does sound pretty generic. There's a lot of characters that can use electricity in anime and stuff, but the way she uses her electricity is always pretty unique and innovative, I think. And I thoroughly enjoy this iconic tsundere. But not as much as number 6, the Mitsuka clones. And I mean all of them. I mean the Mitsuka clones, Last Order, Dolly, Worst, and Will of the Mitsuka Network. I mean every single one of the clones. I didn't know how to just pick one of them because I like them all so much. So I just put all of them. I guess actually this isn't a top 50. It's not even a top 51. It's actually a top 10,000, I don't know, 50 something number. I don't know. It's a big list. It's a big list, all right? The Mitsuka clones are, first of all, they're extremely humorous. They're very comedic characters. I've always found them extremely funny. I love the way they interact with Toma and Accelerator and whoever else. I like how effectively they're used throughout the series, even though there's just so many. There's just a ridiculous amount of Mitsuka clones. I really love how they're used as characters throughout the series. Even after the Sisters arc, it's not like they're just thrown away or anything. No, they all play a very particular role. They're often the center of conflict for, pretty good reasoning. I think that their existence is very well intertwined with the real conflicts of Academy City, with the meaning of their existence and the sort of repercussions of their creation. I also really like how meaningful the characters are to other characters. So what I mean is, obviously the Mitsuka clones themselves, the bulk of them, are extremely precious to Mikoto herself because she views them as being her genuine sisters. Last Order, I shouldn't even have to say, Last Order is a very, very important character to Accelerator. She represents his sort of opportunity for redemption. They are a wonderful duo together. Dolly, obviously Dolly with Shokuho and Mitari. Mitsuka Worst also with Accelerator, and then the Will of the Mitsuka Network with Toma. So all of the Mitsuka clones, they mean a lot to other characters. They have very strong bonds with other characters. All of them are involved in some of the greatest scenes that this series has ever seen. To not say anything specific, I could point out, obviously, Old Testament 3 and, the Sisters arc and Railgun, obviously. The scene with the wings and Last Order, you know what I'm talking about there. Dolly, I should even have to specify with Dolly. And probably the most iconic, if not the greatest scene in the entirety of Index in New Testament 9. If you know, you know. If you read, you read. Just wonderful characters, wonderfully utilized, very meaningful, and just very, very fun characters. Number 5, Accelerator. Like I had said earlier, if I were ranking these characters based off of who I thought were the best, I would say number 1 and 2 would go between Accelerator and Aleister Crowley. Accelerator may literally just be like... Accelerator is just straight up one of the best developed characters that you're gonna find in fiction. He's gone through such a phenomenal redemption arc. Someone who was manipulated by corrupt adults and was deceived and practically forced into committing really atrocious acts, and now he's set on atoning for what he's done and redeeming himself by protecting the clones who he was manipulated into slaughtering. There's so much to unpack with his character. Everyone already knows about it at this point. Anyone that's seen the series is familiar with his character. Really just a character like no other. You're not going to find anyone quite like him. There's too much that can be said about him, so we'll just move on. Number 4, maybe a surprising pick. I don't know if people knew how much I liked this character, but Kamisato Kakeru. I'm surprised myself at how much I love this character. I love how he mirrors Toma, yet adopts a very radically different perspective from Toma. I love their sort of rivalry, if you want to call it a rivalry, so much throughout the Kamisato saga. And I really love just the very end of his sort of personal story. And I thought the resolution really of his arc was far different from what I would have expected. It's really interesting to see the sort of depths of his hatred for the gods that had granted him such a great power that he just didn't want. As someone who purely wished for nothing more than a very boring, normal, typical life, using that power to attack the ones who blessed him with it, blessed him to be able to do great things, and he just turns it against it. It's such a bizarre, it's such a weird freaking story, dude, but it's so interesting because of that. I love just how callous his personality is, yet he's also still a very principled guy. And just overall, the whole battle of perspectives between him and Toma is really interesting. And I really just liked Kamisato a lot more than Toma in the Kamisato saga. Maybe not a lot more, but it was surprising to myself that I not necessarily found myself pulling for Kamisato, but I found myself way more engaged with his scenes than I was Toma throughout that part of the story. Number 3, dude, we're at the top 3. We're at the top 3, dude. Are you kidding me? It's like we started all the way from 50 and now we're here in the top 3. Who is it gonna be? Number 3, Tsuchimikado Motoharu. He's just cool. Let me tell you, I hated his character when I watched season 1. He was my least favorite character. I just didn't like him at all. And now he's in my top 3. So why do I like him so much? I like him because he's cool, okay? I just like him because he's cool. I like that he wears a Hawaiian shirt, just totally unbuttoned with sunglasses. All right, he's cool, but okay, I on a more real note, I love, one of my favorite archetypes in any story is when you have a character that is very goofy on the outside, but internally is very serious, and no one really embodies that better than Tsuchimikado. He is an extremely serious character who masquerades it all with this just goofy persona, as if everything is all just fun and games, but in reality, messing with him is like poking a bear in its den. Probably a top 5 scene for me in New Testament is in New Testament 7, when Tsuchimikado kind of takes on the protagonist role for about half of that volume. I called it a scene. I mean, there's a specific scene I'm referring to. If you've read, you probably know what this scene is. But I wish he showed up more, man. I wish that he did a lot more, but I understand the series has gotten to a level where Tsuchimikado can't really do very much. Although I guess compared to other characters, he's still pretty involved. But I'll just leave it at that and we'll move on. I'm ready to wrap up this video. I did not want this video to be dang near 2 hours long, dude. What is wrong with me? Okay, number 2. I believe it or not, I went back and forth on this, and part of me actually still wants to change this. Number 2, Shokuho Misaki. I'll go ahead and say Shokuho is my personal favorite written character in the entire series, despite the fact that she is not number 1. You know who number 1 is. I shouldn't even have to say who number 1 is. But number 2, Shokuho just kind of checks every box for me. The flirtatious personality, the sort of Code Geass-esque nature of her ability and her sort of intellect, and like how she uses her ability, the total ride or die mentality for Toma, the internal conflict she faces as, and this is not really a spoiler because it's already implied in the anime, but the everlasting internal conflict of not actually being able to be remembered by the person that she loves so much. Yet despite that, she clings on to this false hope that things will change one day. I've said it many times in my videos, but like, what's so good about her character is just the emotional vulnerability that you just don't get out of very many other characters in this series, at least not anywhere to the same degree as with Shokuho. She's also a character with this sort of dual personality aspect that I love so much in characters, where the persona that she puts up is, in a way, a sort of coping mechanism, or a way to overcome the internal strife that she actually feels. So she puts up this very confident personality that makes it feel like she has everything in control, but in the reality, she doesn't feel like anything is in her control. And that's what the biggest sort of fear of hers is that she fears not having control. And that's why her ability is what it is, you know, mental hours. She can control people. So, you know, pretty perfect explanation there. I also love the personal restrictions that she places on herself and how she'll use her own power, because it kind of shows how, yes, she could make her own life way easier by using her power on herself in, you know, convenient ways to forget pain and hardship that she's experienced, but she understands the value of pain and hardship, so she refuses to ever erase those experiences of hers. Because if she did that, then could she really say that she is the person that she is? Shokuho Misaki would not be anyone if she could just erase any, like, bad memories that she doesn't like. So I just feel like there's a level of depth to her character that's on another level from a lot of the rest of this cast. And even aside from that, I just inherently enjoy her personality. I love her banter with Mikoto. I love a lot of her antics. I love her whole backstory with Toma. There's so much I could say. And there's so much I have said, because I've talked about Toaru for like well over, with this video now, well over 20 hours. But yeah, Shokuho Misaki, big fan of the starry-eyed girl. So who is number one? I'm sure you're all shaking in your boots. But no, I know you guys know. I know you guys already know. It's Edzali! That's right, it's Edzali, the guy with the rock with a really long name that pretends to be other people. Now, you guys know it is Kuriko Shirai. My online identity has been branded with Kuriko Shirai for multiple years. I don't even know how long it's been. I got into this series in 2018. I guess probably around beginning of 2019, middle of 2019. I became a stan for this little freak. That's right, I, grown-ass man, have branded my online alias around this perverted, sinful, deranged, attempted rapist. She is mentally ill, but she's my mentally ill character. She's justified in every weird thing she does because I think she's funny. You know, if Aleister Crowley were a good character, he would have just tried to roofie Toma, like Kuriko tried to do in episode 2 of a certain scientific railgun. You know, the second-hand embarrassment that I get sometimes. I've watched Toaru with a few of my friends at this point, and the second-hand embarrassment that I would get, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm serious. I wouldn't trade the second-hand embarrassment I get watching Kuriko scenes with my friends for all of the money and women in the world. I wouldn't do it. There is not a scene in the entirety of the series with Kuriko Shirai in it that does not cause me to wear the most mischievous, dubious, goofy smile that a man could wear. This character is so out of pocket, is so entertaining, is so funny, that if I put anyone above her in this spot, I would feel as if I'm lying to myself. I went to Japan last year, and I went to Tachikawa. Tachikawa is the real-life city that Academy City is based off of. And I went to like one of the anime stores in Tachikawa. And of course, there's a lot of Toaru merchandise. By the way, I mentioned this on the Toaru podcast last time I was on, but there's a railgun-themed tea shop run by an elderly couple, and it was phenomenal. Wonderful people. But I went to Tachikawa in this anime store, and I asked this random elderly Japanese woman to take a picture of me very awkwardly standing in front of a Kuriko Shirai cardboard cutout. I went there and I was not going to leave without someone taking a picture of me and standing next to the Kuriko Shirai cutout. It was extremely awkward, but I don't regret it. I don't think I regret it. But what am I getting to with all this? What am I getting to? Well, what I'm getting at is that this character over the last 6 years has, for some reason, become an oddly large part of my life, which is very strange to say, probably. I've branded almost everything on the internet of myself with Kuriko Shirai. My Twitter avatar is Kuriko Shirai. My Spotify avatar, I think, is Kuriko Shirai. My most played song on Spotify, the artwork is Kuriko Shirai. Actually, if you just pull up my Spotify, it's Kuriko Shirai is what you see. I don't know if that's actually legal or not. It's probably not, but no one has stopped me yet, so it remains. My Discord profile picture, it's not always Kuriko, but it is Kuriko right now. On my desktop, for several years now, on my desktop, I have always kept a video of that clip of Kuriko from the game, a certain magical virtualon, whatever it is, the virtualon index game, where Kuriko makes absolutely incomprehensible noises. I haven't taken that off of my desktop in several years. When I'm in my room that I'm in right now, no matter which direction I turn, there is probably something Kuriko related that I can look at. I don't even think about it anymore. She is just ingrained into my daily life. Maybe it's parasocial, I don't know, it probably is. But what can I say about Kuriko Shirai, the character herself? You know, I had said I was gonna make a video on her a long time ago. I decided not to do that. I decided not to make any videos on just individual characters. But Kuriko Shirai, when I watched Toaru, I watched it for Mikoto. And I was so enamored with Kuriko's character that I couldn't not make her my favorite. I could spout off some random reasoning why I like her character so much. Like, sure, yes, I love her calculative mind. I love all of her fights. All of her fights are super fun. I love her desire for justice and civil duty. I love how, despite the fact that she's a sick little freak, she actually is extremely thoughtful and caring about the people around her. I could say I love her voice. Oh, her voice is amazing. Satomi Arai, absolutely phenomenal voice actress. But you know what? All it boils down to is I just enjoy every single scene that she is in way too much. I can come up with these more, I guess, sophisticated, not to sound pretentious or whatever, but more sophisticated reasoning for liking, characters that are really complex or develop in a really nice way. But simply put, if you don't just enjoy a character as much as another character, then why would you pretend to like them more? Like, I could list all these profound things about Aleister Crowley that makes him such a phenomenal character, or Accelerator, but like every scene Kirko is in, I'm genuinely smiling. I cannot like stop smiling because she's so funny. She brings like way too much energy to the table, and I'm just having fun whenever she's involved, even if it's just a small little part. Like in New Testament 16, she has one scene in that volume, I think, and I love that scene. I think you get the point. I need to wrap up this video because I was thinking, oh man, I'll make this video like what, maybe like an hour long, and then here I am almost at 2 hours. That's not very cool. I didn't wanna make a 2 hour long video. But yeah, I think you guys get the point. I think Kuroko Shirai is pretty cool. This list was hard to make. I challenge you guys to try to organize your top 50 characters in this series, especially for you light novel readers out there. It's not easy. In Toaru, it's so hard to balance these characters because there's an absurd amount of them, and then you have to balance whether you just enjoy this character more for their personality, or maybe their role in the story, or the themes they represent, and all these different things. I kid you not, I actually had Lesser above Toma in in a previous version of this list, which sounds absolutely outrageous. But it's actually just hard to consider who do you like more between a character that you just enjoy on a very, kind of surface level extent versus a character that may mean a lot more, but you may not necessarily find to be as entertaining. As you can probably tell, I generally kind of favor the characters that I just enjoy more, as opposed to characters that I maybe extract more meaning out of. But yeah, that's probably why this list was pretty all over the place. I'm sure a lot of strange takes in there. If you listened all the way to the end, you're weird. You're kind of weird. You listened to some random dude on the internet talk about his top 50 favorite Toaru characters for almost 2 hours, and I think that's a little strange, but it's okay, and I appreciate you for doing that. Of course, I'd love to hear some of your guys' favorite characters. You don't have to do top 50. You can if you want. I'm not going to stop you. But I would really love to see who some of your guys' favorite characters are. I pretty much already said this in the beginning of the video, but truthfully, don't expect videos to come very often. I'm very busy in my own personal life now. I think I mentioned it in a comment on a recent video that I replied to. But I recently got a new full-time job, and I am in school as well, graduate school to be exact, so not exactly very easy. And so in the little spare time that I have, I don't necessarily want to spend it on making these videos, because like I said, I started making these videos when I had a lot of free time and I had a lot of things I wanted to talk about and not really anyone to talk about them with. And this channel was just a perfect opportunity for that, but I'm not really in that place in my life anymore. Things are a lot different now than they were, dude, I don't know, how long was that, 3 or 4 years ago at this point? So it's just my plan to make videos whenever I'm just feeling inspired to do so. People have asked if I'm gonna make videos on GT. Well, I'll say maybe. I would love to, but I really just don't have that much time. It would take me a long time to even just read the volumes alone. I kind of planned on maybe starting GT sometime in the summer of this year, 2024. Who knows when this video is going to go up. But I'd like to, and I'll probably take notes, just in case I do want to make the videos. But making the videos is pretty difficult to do. It takes a lot of time. I know people will watch these videos and say there's no editing to them, whatsoever, I mean. And yeah, you're right, there's no editing, but taking the time to record a video takes a lot longer than the actual length of a video. I've been recording this video for far longer than 2 hours. And then for all of my videos, what I've done is I've gone back and I've re-listened to all of it so I could edit the audio, and then I've got to put it into video editing software, blah, blah, blah. I do all the visual stuff that I do. That doesn't take very long. If I have like timestamps, that's an annoying aspect to deal with. And then, of course, the video, because the videos are so long, it takes a long time for them to actually upload on YouTube. And it's something I have to do overnight. So, you know, there's enough steps that take enough amount of time to where the process gets, you know, it kind of becomes a drag. And I just have so many other priorities. There's a lot of things I like to do in my spare time. So to have to say no to all of those things, to record a video for a very long amount of time, and then to edit the audio for it, which also takes a very long amount of time, is not something I'm always willing to do. I'm not saying I want to throw this channel away or anything. No, I still plan to, you know, very, very slowly upload videos whenever I just get inspired to. But I'm really just doing this for, you know, a little bit of fun on the side. Or sometimes I just like to say that I made this and put it out on the internet, and then, you know, get a little engagement, have a little conversation with people about it. That's the most fun part. If these videos got 0 comments, I literally just wouldn't make them anymore. The comments are without a doubt my favorite part of this channel. Nothing even comes close. So if I go a long time again without uploading any videos, which will almost definitely happen, I just want to say thank you to everyone that has watched these videos. I really, really appreciate the people that watch these videos, and I really appreciate the people that take the time to leave really thoughtful comments. And I always think we have a really good discussion in the comments. I always love seeing what people have to say. And you guys are also just the kindest people ever, because the last few videos I uploaded, there were very long gaps in between them, and then people would just say really nice things like, "Oh, the king is back. Oh, you're way too nice." I am no king. I am no king. But it means a lot, and it's very, very flattering that people would say such kind things just because I uploaded a video for the first time in several months. So I really appreciate that. It really does brighten my day when I see stuff like that. And just in case I don't ever upload that reflection on New Testament video, I'll just kind of reiterate here one thing I said in that video, is that I really enjoyed the time I spent reading New Testament, even though it took a very, very long amount of time. And making the videos and engaging with people about the books was such a special experience. As nerdy as that sounds, it really was a special experience, and it made reading New Testament alongside you guys just way more motivating. It was so cool to see people get excited for me to get to a certain part in the story, and it's so cool for people to just genuinely enjoy listening to what I have to say. I don't think I'm ever saying anything really special. A lot of times you guys in those videos were pointing out things that I didn't even notice at all, or were pointing out, like, you know, certain, you know, parts like symbolism or a little bit of extra lore that I didn't know, or like the history that maybe index novels were like being based off of. A lot of really cool stuff, a lot of cool context that I never would have known about had people not commented. So once again, I just want to sincerely thank everyone that has watched these videos. I had a great time doing it. Even if you just never see me again, even if for some reason I disappear off of this channel, I really did appreciate all the time spent engaging with people about Toaru. I really enjoyed, because of these videos, I got invited on the Toaru podcast on Aeon's channel, and that was a really great opportunity, kind of getting to connect with people about this series. So it's been a really fun ride, and just want to say that I really appreciate all of that. If you don't see me here, just know I have a music channel that I will always probably be uploading on at least like once or twice, maybe 3 times a year, with musical projects. So if you have any interest in that, that's there. It's also my Twitter. I don't tweet a lot, but I do look at my Twitter a lot. So that's one way to connect. I'm also completely open to adding anyone on Discord. I won't say what my Discord is like here publicly in this video, but if you want to reach out to me in the comments, or maybe on Twitter somewhere, you want to get my Discord and add me there, totally down to do that. Doesn't matter who you are. totally willing to add you and we can talk about whatever every now and then. So yeah, thank you all for watching this unnecessarily long video once again. And you know what? I hope you have a wonderful, I said a wonderful day, night, week, month, year, decade,